I saved you. And I'm here to save you again. The parasites are merely a symptom of a greater sickness in Faerun. The infected hear the voice of the Absolute and believe it to be a god.
The Absolute is more dangerous than you can possibly conceive. It threatens all who live. It threatens the gods, the weave, the very fabric of the universe itself.
How would you feel about helping me kill some evil bastards?
It blesses me this day. Together, we might survive.
I'll enjoy watching you try. In mere moments, all that you have dreaded will come to pass. When the screaming stops and your mind is gone, the rest, perhaps, is silence.
In the realm of video games, few titles stand out as profoundly as Baldur's Gate 3, a game that intricately weaves together the fabric of classic literature with the immersive experience of modern gaming. This project seeks to explore how Baldur's Gate 3 draws upon a rich tapestry of literary texts, particularly those from the Romantic period, to create an engaging narrative that enhances the learning experience for students and seasoned gamers alike. By emphasizing themes such as the sublime, inner emotional conflicts, and Gothic aesthetics, the game invites players to navigate moral quandaries and emotional landscapes reminiscent of works by authors like Mary Shelley and William Blake. Through its participatory storytelling, Baldur's Gate 3 not only entertains, but also serves as a catalyst for deeper literary analysis. This analysis revolves around the game's use of interactive decision-making as a basic gameplay mechanic, which is reminiscent of the moral complexities seen in classic literature. Players are submerged in a fictional world where the decisions they make have concrete effects on the story, inspiring contemplation on issues similar to those encountered by literary heroes. This compatibility with character-driven storytelling encourages the exploration of identity and moral quandaries. Players who do face these moral decisions, for example, may find themselves in similar situations to those encountered by characters like Victor Frankenstein in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The emotional depth of these characters invites players to reflect on their own moral choices and the impact of those choices within the game world. In this way, Baldur's Gate 3 not only entertains, but also encourages a deeper engagement with themes of identity, freedom, and existential conflict, all of which are hallmarks of romantic thought. In addition, a variety of in-game components used in Baldur's Gate 3 include text, characters, dialogue, and visual design that are inspired by literary traditions, themes, and styles. The artistic decisions made in the game's surroundings induce both amazement and apprehension, perfectly encapsulating the spirit of the Gothic as well as the raw beauty and intense emotion that parallel the traits of the Romantic period. Poets such as Wordsworth and Byron, who emphasized the bond between man and nature, are echoed in these vast landscapes that players are urged to explore and portray the sublime force of nature. This interaction with the natural world provides a framework for players' decisions, enabling investigation of the interactions between the wild and civilization. By immersing themselves in these artistic choices, players can better appreciate the narratives and themes that shape their experiences, making connections between the game and the broader canon of literary texts. Moreover, Baldur's Gate 3 adeptly incorporates character archetypes and narrative structures reminiscent of Romantic literature, further enriching its storytelling and gameplay. The game features a diverse cast of characters, each grappling with their own inner conflicts and existential dilemmas that echo the struggles of romantic heroes and heroines. For example, characters like Astarion, a vampire spawn, torn between his predatory instincts and his desire for autonomy, parallel the themes of duality and conflict found in the works of writers such as Byron and Shelley. Though, through first-hand experiences with these conflicts, players develop empathy and a deeper comprehension of topics inherent to these writings by gaining insight into the motivations and moral difficulties that distinguish romantic characters. As players traverse the complex relationships and moral decisions within the game, they engage with broader literary themes of destiny, self-discovery, and the quest for individuality. This interactive element allows players to reflect on their own identities and choices, paralleling the personal journeys depicted in literary texts. The game's structure emphasizes personal growth as a core component of the narrative, inviting players to consider how their decisions affect not only themselves but also their companions. Similar to how literary, particularly shown in romantic literature, characters often influence and are influenced by those around them. This exploration of character dynamics and relationships enrich players' understanding of how interpersonal connections shape individual experiences, a prevalent theme in romantic work. Developed and published by Larian Studios, Baldur's Gate 3 is an expansive role-playing game rooted in rich lore of the Dungeons & Dragons universe, set in the iconic city of Baldur's Gate and its surrounding regions. The story centers on a party of adventurers who have been infected by parasitic tadpoles, creatures that grant them extraordinary powers, but come with the horrifying risk of transforming them into mind flayers, ruthless telepathic beings that feed on the brains of others. As players navigate this perilous journey, they must make critical choices that not only shape the narrative, but also the development of their characters. This brings us to one of the most engaging features of Baldur's Gate 3, its deep and intricate character customization system. This intricate and robust character creation system, which allows players to craft their own unique protagonist, lets you choose race, class, and even background to customize appearances and abilities. This feature ensures that no two playthroughs are alike. The freedom to shape a character's personality, alignment, and skill set plays a crucial role in the overall experience as it directly impacts interactions with NPCs, a non-playable character that serves various roles, such as a quest giver, merchant, or allies, and help drive the game's story forward, as well as their approach to combat and unfolding different narratives. Players can tailor their characters to fit specific playstyles, whether that be through brute strength, spellcasting, or cunning diplomacy. As a result, thoughtful character creation is essential to ensure that the character is both capable and adaptable, enhancing the gameplay experience and allowing for a smoother journey through the game's complex world. The game also uses puzzles and environmental storytelling to promote active problem solving and observation skills, key components in both literary and historical analysis. In Baldur's Gate 3, puzzles are embedded within the world, often requiring players to analyze visual clues, context, and even textual lore found in books or artifacts. This kind of exploratory learning encourages students to pay attention to detail and recognize subtle narrative cues, skills that are directly transferable to the analysis or symbolism and context in literature. The game does a fantastic job transforming passive reading skills into active investigative ones, reinforcing the idea that meaning in stories often lies deep beneath the surface. Crafting and resource management systems introduce students to decision-making processes that mimic real-world logistical planning and strategy. Managing limited resources like spell slots, healing items, and equipment require players and students alike to think strategically about preparation and forethought, mirroring the analytical skills used in studying literary and historical text, where students weigh evidence, choose interpretations, and evaluated multiple perspectives. The story begins with characters awakening on a nautiloid ship, having been abducted by mind flayers. As they escape the ship and find themselves in the wilderness, they realize they have been implanted with parasitic tadpoles that grant them extraordinary powers, but also threaten to turn them into mind flayers themselves. This initial predicament sets the stage for a gripping adventure. The character's journey unfolds in the shadow of significant themes from classic literature. The opening scenes aboard this nautiloid ship and the subsequent escape into the wild encapsulate the essence of the grandeur, a concept often explored by romantic poets like William Wordsworth. For instance, players traverse forests and ruined temples filled with awe-inspiring vistas, creating a sense of both wonder and foreboding. This duality reflects the romantic belief in nature's power to invoke profound emotional responses, challenging players to confront their own feelings of vulnerability and awe. In game or super novel, playing and reading massive game novels, Espen Erseth explores how narrative-heavy games like Baldur's Gate 3 function much like novels in terms of storytelling and player engagement. The game's world building and character interactions mirror the intricacy of novels, with Eris stating, "The vast majority of text encountered would be lines of dialogue involving encounters between the player and character and the other persona in the game world." This depth is apparent in Baldur's Gate 3, where players are immersed in complex relationships and morally ambiguous choices, much like the emotional landscapes explored within romantic literature. An example in Act 1 can be found in the exploration of the forest surrounding the Emerald Grove. The ancient trees and looming cliffs create a sense of isolation and grandeur, where beauty and danger coexist. Within the grove, players encounter various threats, including aggressive creatures like goblins and direwolves, as well as the oppressive atmosphere created by the corrupted nature of the surrounding areas. The tension of wandering through this beautiful yet dangerous environment ties directly into the romantic divine. Eris notes that, in short, the production paradigm of commercial adventure games moved from something very much akin to literary model with a single author to something that looked eerily like a film production, but even more complex, based on an ever-developing technology. This shift is exemplified in Baldur's Gate 3, where the stunning graphics and immersive world design compel players to deeply engage with the game's narrative. The grove signifies the dangers of the natural world, reflecting the inherent tension between beauty and peril, a theme prevalent throughout romantic literature. This duality resonates with the works of poets like Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who articulated the majestic experience in nature as one of that evokes awe and terror simultaneously. In the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, for instance, the mariner encounters with the vastness of the ocean embodied both the beauty and the overwhelming power of nature, paralleling the player's experiences in the Emerald Grove. Wordsworth often portrayed nature as a teacher and a spiritual guide, capable of awakening deep emotional and philosophical insights in those who engage with it. In the game, this connection to nature is mirrored through moments where players must investigate its beauty and its danger, offering a reflection of Wordsworth's belief in nature's duality. In one of his famous poems, The Tables Turned, he describes how nature has the power to stir a profound internal response. One impulse from the vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can. This feeling is echoed in Baldur's Gate 3, where the natural world consistently changes and challenges the characters, revealing their inner vulnerabilities, fears, and moral dilemmas. The corrupting influence of the grove and the wild terrain that surrounds it forces players to confront not only external threats, but also their own internal struggles, much like Wordsworth's characters, who were also frequently transformed by their encounters with nature. Another equally important aspect to acknowledge with Wordsworth's idea on nature is the possibility that nature holds restorative powers, which is woven into the narrative of Baldur's Gate 3. He writes in Tintern Abbey, "The still, sad music of humanity, nor harsh nor grating, though of ample power to chasten and subdue." In the game, players often seek refuge in the natural world to heal or regain strength after difficult battles, echoing the sense of nature as a restorative force. Yet, just as Wordsworth suggests that nature can be a place of reflection and healing, he also acknowledges its darker, more untamable aspects, as seen in the huge and mighty forms he describes in the Prelude. The shifting weather patterns, sudden storms, and corrupted wilderness in Baldur's Gate 3 bring to life this very concept of the wild unpredictability of nature as both a source of renewal and a place fraught with danger. Wordsworth frequently highlighted the moral and spiritual lessons derived from nature's grandeur, often depicting how solitude within the natural world leads to personal growth. In this game, players encounter numerous moments of solitude, where they are alone with nature, such as wandering through the dense forest or exploring hidden groves. These moments of exploration invoke Wordsworth's reflections on the individual's relationship to nature, as seen in lines from the Prelude. "Instruct them how the mind of man becomes 1,000 times more beautiful than the earth, on which he dwells above this frame of things. Just as Wordsworth suggests that immersion in nature enhances the mind's capability for thought and introspective, the game's natural settings compel players to make difficult choices, shaping their characters' personal journeys, much like nature shapes the minds of Wordsworth's poetic figures.
"7 years ago, I was exiled from Baldur's Gate, the city I call home. My name is Will, but the people of the Sword Coast call me the Blade of Frontiers, champion of the meek, defender of the innocent. The truth isn't quite so simple, but they're right about one thing. I hunt monsters, and I always catch my prey. My latest target is a devil, and I'm right on her tail. Once I'm through with her, she'll never escape the fires of the first hell."
Will, for Baldur's Gate 3, shared significant parallels with Byronic hero, particularly Lord Byron's Manfred, a quintessential figure of romantic literature. Both characters embody themes of ambition, moral conflict, and the heavy consequences of their decision. Will's story begins with his reputation as the heroic Blade of Frontiers, a noble warrior driven by a desire to protect the weak. However, his pact with the devil Mazora for warlock powers parallels Manfred's pursuit of supernatural knowledge, where both characters seek something beyond ordinary human capability and pay a steep personal price for it. Manfred, like Will, is a character marked by internal torment over his past choices. In Manfred, Byron's character expresses regret for the forbidden knowledge he sought. "Sorrow is knowledge. They who know the most must mourn the deepest o'er the fatal truth. The tree of knowledge is not that of life." Similarly, Will's pact with Mazora comes at a high cost. He gains immense power, but it is derived from the fiendish source, forcing him to face his moral dilemmas. His desire to remain a hero despite the infernal origin of his abilities places him in a constant conflict with himself. This mirrors Manfred's struggle with his own past, where his pursuit of knowledge and power leaves him isolated and tormented, unable to find peace. Both Will and Manfred are haunted by their decisions, with Will's guilt stemming from his compromised morality and Manfred's from his own self-imposed damnation. As Will's journey progresses, he struggles to reconcile his sense of heroism with the reality of his demonic pact. In Manfred, he reveals that he himself is in a similar internal conflict, admitting his guilt and seeking escape from the burden of action. "The spirits I have raised abandon me. The spells which I have studied baffle me. The remedy I reckon have tortured me. I lean no more on superhuman aid." Both Will and Manfred attempt to distance themselves from the forces that once gave them power. For Will, this means searching for redemption and trying to sever ties with Mazora, despite her continuous manipulation. In Manfred's case, he rejects the supernatural powers he once wielded and ultimately refuses salvation, choosing to face his fate alone. Will's desire to be free of Mazora and redeem his soul resonates with Manfred's refusal to submit to external forces, particularly when Manfred asserts, "I have not been thy dupe, nor am I thy prey, but was my own destroyer and will be my own hereafter." Will's fate as a tragic hero is also reflected in his constant pursuit of doing good, even though his powers come from a source that threatens to corrupt him. Much like Manfred, who is a tragic figure driven by remorse and defiance, Will's heroism is darkened by the cost of his ambition. He fights to maintain his ideals while grappling with the consequences of his pact, just as Manfred fights to retain his dignity while acknowledging his role in his own downfall. Manfred's final defiance of all external judgment speaks to this struggle. "Old man, 'tis not so difficult to die." Abbott then points out, "He's gone, his soul hath tithen its earthless flight. Whither, I dread to think, but he is gone." Will's battle to reclaim his soul and free himself from Mazora's influence is an echo of Manfred's internal war, where both characters are caught between their past mistakes and their desires for redemption. Manfred's resistance to both supernatural and divine powers in the end reflect Will's defiance of Mizora and his determination to uphold his moral values despite the darkness of his powers. Due to this intricate portrayal of Will within this video game, not only enhances the player's experience, but also serves as an important conduit for educational opportunities. As noted in a study titled Educational Games, Are They Worth the Effort? A literature survey of the effectiveness of serious games by Pierre Blacklund and Maurice Hendricks. Players frequently repeated voiceovers and texts aloud, as well as borrowed themes, terms, and concepts from the game while discussing game events, allowing students to critically analyze the complexities of characters like Will and Manfred. These exchanges show how well Baldur's Gate 3 can effectively promote conversations about moral conflict and character growth in romantic literature, ultimately deepening the player's comprehension of these subjects and characters.
Well met, stranger. You find yourself in the presence of the renowned wizarding prodigy, Gale of Waterdeep. Please, no need to be intimidated. My virtuosic talents once caught the eye of the goddess of magic herself, Mystra, who named me her chosen, and her lover. Thanks to a slight miscalculation on my part, that relationship eventually soured, as did the greatest of my powers. Now I'm merely a humble wizard on the road to redemption. Unless I can find the path to something greater.
In romantic literature, Victor Frankenstein from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a well-known character for his relentless ambition to break through human limitations, which ultimately leads to being confronted by forces beyond his control, much like the character we encounter in this video game named Gale Dekarios. Gale's quest to manipulate the Weave, a forbidden dimension of magic, parallels Victor's relentless pursuit of unlocking the secret of world and life itself. He expresses his ambition with the desire to pour a torrent of light into our dark world, a sentiment that resonates with Gale's longing to surpass conventional magic boundaries. However, this ambition incurs dire consequences. Just as Victor's creation leads to ruin and despair, Gale's manipulation of the Weave fragment results in personal suffering and endangering those around him. Victor's profound regret mirrors that of Gale's own remorse over the catastrophic outcomes of his magical experimentation. After creating his creature, Victor reflects, "I had worked hard for nearly 2 years, but now that I had finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and the breathless horror and disgust filled my heart." Just as Victor expresses this regret for unleashing his creature upon the world, Gale undergoes a transformation where he grapples with the implications of his own ambition. He is forced to confront the potential destruction he may cause if he continues on his current path, thanks to his reckless ambition and his relationship with the goddess Mystra. This relationship with Mystra plays a crucial role in shaping Gale's character arc, as well as his tragic narrative. He seeks to harness the full extent of her power, believing that by doing so, he can achieve greatness and perhaps gain her approval. This wild ambition echoes Victor's obsession with creating life, as both characters are propelled by a yearning to push past the boundaries of what is possible. According to an article titled Serious Games as Educational Tools, How Effective Are They? A Meta-Analysis of Recent Studies, by C. Gerard, Jean Ackley, and Anna Magnan, emphasizes that games fostering ethical decision-making and narrative exploration yield richer learning experiences. The authors argue, in a meta-analysis of the effect of computer games and interactive simulations on learning, Vogel et al. Reported that these two digital applications lead to better cognitive outcomes and that the students prefer them to traditional teaching methods. By integrating RPGs with traditional reading exercises, students can achieve better retention and conceptual understanding. The interactive nature of these games, featuring feedback loops, decision-making, and teamwork, deepens engagement and enhances the memorability of the material. These studies provide support for the effectiveness of serious games, particularly role-playing games, as valuable supplements to traditional instructional methods in areas like literature and history, promoting both cognitive and effective learning. The educational potential of games further amplifies the themes embodied by characters like Gale. Scholarly research underscores that video games can increase enjoyment, engagement, and immersion, fostering critical thinking and deepening players' interactions with complex ethical dilemmas. This is particularly significant for Gale, whose character encapsulates themes of ambition, responsibility, and the moral repercussions of defying natural limits. When players engage with Gale's narrative, they are actively prompted to confront ethical questions reminiscent of Victor Frankenstein's tragic decisions, transforming classic moral dilemmas into interactive experiences. By exploring Gale's ambition, players not only find entertainment but also reflect on the consequences of unchecked thirst for knowledge and power, transforming Victor Frankenstein's cautionary tale into a participatory experience.
Hello, darling. Don't be shy. I promise not to bite until we've been formally introduced. My name's Astarion, and I've spent a century stalking the night, hunting for pretty morsels just like you. A man called Cazador made me what I am, kept me like a pet, forced me to do his bidding. No more. The Tadpole's influence broke his dominance over me, and now I can finally pursue the one thing I've hungered for these long, dark years. Revenge. I'm going back to Baldur's Gate to track Cazador down in his lair. I'll be the last thing the bastard ever sees.
The ideas of identity and freedom that are essential to romantic literature, particularly in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, are echoed in Astarion's quest for self-discovery and autonomy. Both characters grapple with changes that drastically alter their lives and force them to fight for their independence and sense of self. Astarion, once a noble high elf, is transformed into a vampire spawn, a being subjugated to the will of a master. This transformation is not a choice but a violent imposition, mirroring Frankenstein's creature, who is brought to life against his own will. Both of these individuals experience tremendous dislocation from their original selves, resulting in existential crisis fueled by a desire for control and understanding. In Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein's hubris results in the creation of a being that he cannot control. The creature, abandoned and rejected, articulates his sense of identity and longing for acceptance when he laments, "I am alone and miserable. Man will not associate with me, but one as miserable as myself would not deny herself to me. My companion must be of the same species and have the same defects. This being you must create." This poignant declaration highlights the creature's struggle with his identity and desire for connection, paralleling Astarion's own feelings of isolation as he navigates the aftermath of his transformation. Astarion's quest for agency manifests in his actions and choices throughout the game as he seeks to reclaim not just his freedom, but also his identity. Romantic literature emphasizes individualism and the pursuit of meaning, often in response to the chaos of the world around them. Astarion embodies this preoccupation with the self, just as his journey reflects a desire to define himself beyond the constraints of his vampiric nature. Astarion's internal conflict is symbolic of this struggle as he grapples with the remnants of his past while seeking self-definition in a world that sees him only as a monster. His journey invites players to explore themes of autonomy and selfhood, crucial to both his character development and the overarching narrative of Baldur's Gate 3. Engaging with Astarion's narrative allows players to experience themes of identity and transformation firsthand, creating a more immersive understanding of the struggles portrayed in Frankenstein. According to a scoping review of video games and learning in secondary classrooms, such immersive storytelling can serve as a tool to deepen students' understanding of complex themes, encouraging them to draw personal connections to literature and critically examine characters, motives, and conflicts. The review emphasizes role-playing experiences that put players in the shoes of complex characters can support deeper engagement and empathy, and promote a connection to both literature and broader social issues. This active engagement provides a dynamic learning opportunity that resonates beyond the text as players like Astarion wrestle with questions of autonomy, self-definition, and ethical choice. In Baldur's Gate 3, the Night Song is a powerful and enigmatic figure embodying mystical qualities that guide players through their journey. She is a manifestation of the supernatural, deeply connected to the game's narrative and exploration of themes such as fate, identity, and the struggle for autonomy. Her presence echoes the romantic fascination with the supernatural, inviting players to engage with forces beyond ordinary understanding. Romantic literature frequently explores these themes, and Coleridge's Kubla Khan exemplifies this theme through its vivid imagery and supernatural element. The poem presents a vision of an I would build that dome in the air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, embodying the sublime and the mysterious. As Gernot Boehms notes in their article titled The Aesthetics of Atmospheres, the sublime is not merely a quality of the objects of nature, but a reflection of the perceiver's emotional response to it. This perspective encourages students to consider how the Night Song, as an unknown yet profoundly influential force, parallels Coleridge's exploration of the mystical. Coleridge's depiction of otherworldly realms such as through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea, illustrates the depth and mystery that both the Night Song and her influence have on the game's narrative. These elements prompt players to engage with the emotional landscape of the game in ways that resonate with romantic themes. This alignment of the Night Song's influence with Coleridge's vision invites students to explore how both narratives utilize supernatural elements to deepen emotional engagement and reflect on the nature of existence. In Morey's article titled Realism, Imagination, and Narrative in video games allow for a form of narrative engagement that transforms players into active participants in the unfolding story, making the experience one of both personal and immersive.
Our Lady of Silver, hear me. She who guides the Moon Maiden Selûne, mother of the so-called Night Song. The Night Song is no more! You have given me a great gift, little warrior. Don't you find it oh so curious that you would spurn your dark lady? Perhaps you feel a stirring of the truth already. But that will come later. There is a battle yet to be fought. You have done what we feared was impossible. You have released me from a century of sorrow. Your power is great. So too must be your weapon. You must choose what you will wield. And the Moon Maiden will provide. Thus I have said. Thus will it be so.
Oh, the general voice. Is this where we salute?
Salute, yes, with cleavers through his blood-starved flesh. How it crawls with failure, like flies on lick-wet carrion.
You forget yourself, Orin. I have played my part.
You've built an army for our masters, true enough, but what of the astral prison? A rogue true soul flaunting it under your nose all this time, and you ran from her.
Sure that they would follow and deliver it into my hands here. If you would cease these distractions.
The distractions have been yours, Ketherick. Perhaps we never should have dug your daughter up. So you haven't lost your edge. But you're still not as sharp as Orin, I wager.
Antagonist Ketherick Thorm is a multifaceted character with a tragic backstory. Ketherick's transformation from a devoted family man to a necromancer bound by dark magic underscores the idea of the fallen hero who seeks power beyond moral limits, mirroring the complex portrayal of the character Satan in John Milton's Paradise Lost. Milton writes, "The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven," a line that speaks to Ketherick's inner turmoil. His own despair and unchecked ambition convert his world into a personal hell, suggesting that his path towards evil is as much about personal agony as it is about the pursuit of power. Interesting scholarship on villains in literature often emphasize the role of personal tragedy in shaping moral descent. According to Harold Bloom, Milton's Satan becomes a character defined by his powerful desires and frustrations, a tragic hero locked in his own suffering. Ketherick, similarly, is trapped in a cycle of grief and bitterness, driven to immortality by his refusal to accept the loss of his daughter and wife. His delving into necromancy, like Satan's rebellion, reflects a rejection of the natural order, a hallmark of the romantic fascination with the forbidden. Ketherick's character also resonates with notion of the tragic anti-hero, as discussed by literary critic Northrop Frye, who argues that the true tragic hero is one who is capable of greatness yet trapped by his own flaws. Ketherick's fall is framed by his initial potential for heroism. He was once a respected general and family man, yet his inability to cope with personal loss leads him to seek unnatural powers, which ultimately consume him. In a similar vein, his relationship with necromancy raises questions about the lengths individuals are willing to go for power, a theme deeply explored in Paradise Lost. By inviting players to witness Ketherick's descent, Baldur's Gate 3 offers a narrative experience that mirrors the reflective engagement central to Romantic era literature. Scholar Peter Brooks writes, "The villain's suffering often becomes a mirror for our own moral reflection, allowing us to see the consequences of unchecked ambition." In this light, Ketherick's tragic backstory and descent into darkness prompt players to confront the ethical boundaries between grief, ambition, and morality. The game's nuanced portrayal of Ketherick not only adds depth to the character, but also challenges players to reconsider the nature of evil itself, suggesting that even the darkest figures can be products of complex, painful experiences.
That is the power my Lord Merkel has granted me. Command over the immeasurable legions of the dead. But he did not only give me power, he gave me the one thing no other god could grant me. My daughter's life returned. Her heart beating once more. For that, he asked that I serve as his chosen. Join Orin and Gortash to grow the cult of the Absolute, and then take control of it. No. There is no repentance. No release. My debt can never be repaid. He is here. He is watching. He is listening. He is...
final enemy of this video game is a creature called the Elder Brain. This creature is a powerful, ancient, and highly intelligent entity typically found in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. It is the central figure in a colony of Illithids, or Mind Flayers, a race of humanoid, tentacled beings with psionic powers. The Elder Brain is essentially the collective consciousness of its entire species, controlling and influencing the actions of all Illithids through a psychic link. Its immense psychic abilities allow it to dominate minds, warp reality, and bend others to its will. The Elder Brain's power is not just physical, but cerebral, manipulating thoughts, emotions, and actions to establish dominance over those it encounters. It serves as the focal point for the entire Illithid hive, controlling the flow of information and the direction of its species' collective will. This form of mental control and domination is what makes the Elder Brain such a potent symbol. It represents the concept of overpowering and repressive control, an entity that suppresses individuality and forces conformity. Those who come into contact with the Elder Brain risk losing their personal identity, as the brain's psychic influence erodes their sense of self, turning them into extensions of its will. In this sense, it can be seen as a symbol of oppressive power that diminishes human autonomy, both a literal and metaphorical force that threatens the individual's mind and soul. In the context of romantic literature, this idea of psychic and intellectual domination aligns with key romantic themes of resistance against oppressive forces that seek to stifle individual autonomy and creativity. The Elder Brain, in its function of controlling the will of others, can be seen as a powerful allegory for the larger, often invisible forces that the Romantics critiqued: authoritarian structures, societal norms, and the loss of personal freedom to outside influence. The Elder Brain's oppressive influence aligns with key themes in Romantic literature, where poets and writers often critiqued forces that stifled individual freedom and creativity. William Blake, a prominent Romantic poet, explores such a theme in his poem London, where he describes the mind-forged manacles imposed by society on the human spirit. I wander through each character's street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. The term chartered conveys a sense of restriction and ownership, depicting a society where even the natural flow of the Thames and city streets are controlled. Blake also writes that in every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice and every band, the mind-forged manacles I hear. The mind-forged manacles represent mental and emotional constraints created by societal forces that limit personal freedom. Similarly, the Elder Brain's psionic control acts as a manacle on the mind, subjecting the free will of those it dominates. Both Blake's imagery and the Elder Brain reflect how oppressive forces can warp the mind and suppress the individual's natural creativity and autonomy. Students encountering the Elder Brain in Baldur's Gate 3 might find themselves reminded of Blake's warning against unchecked control. The Elder Brain's power echoes the same mind-forged manacles Blake critiques in his poetry, a reminder of how forces, whether institutional or psychic, can threaten to erase individuality and creativity. For Blake, those forces lead to a collective woe as the human spirit becomes constrained by fear and authority. The Elder Brain serves as a vivid, immense symbol of this romantic concern, bringing Blake's critique of oppression and the loss of personal freedom into a modern interactive form. Video games like Baldur's Gate 3 exemplify the potential of interactive media to enhance educational experiences. By integrating literary themes and complex narratives, these games provide immersive environments that actively engage students in the learning process. The mechanics of choice and consequences encourage players to embody ideas such as individualism and emotional exploration, transforming traditional literary analysis into a dynamic and participatory experience. As James Paul Gee aptly states, good video games can teach us how to think, how to interact with the world, and how to make decisions. This perspective underscores how games like Baldur's Gate 3 create a mirror of real-life scenarios in which players must weigh choices, consider moral consequences, and experience the outcome of their actions. The game frequently confronts players with challenging moral dilemmas that influence the story's progression and affect relationships with other characters. This decision-making process not only immerses players in the narrative, but also forces critical thinking and ethical reasoning skills, which are applicable beyond the virtual world and invaluable in a literature classroom. In addition to fostering individual decision-making, multiplayer and team-based mechanics encourage cooperative learning. Constance Stein-Cluther and Sean Duncan, in their article Scientific Habits of Mind in Virtual Worlds, note that multiplayer environments and gaming can create spaces for social interaction and cooperative learning. Here, players often strategize and negotiate with teammates, especially when facing complex choices or challenging combat scenarios. These collaborations and aspects of gameplay reflect classroom activities in which students engage in discussions, debate interpretations, and share insights. This team-based learning cultivates deeper engagement with literary analysis, as players encountered varied perspectives and interpretations from their peers. Interactive games serve as powerful tools for enhancing students' comprehension and appreciation of romantic literature. Through their narrative depth, players can explore themes central to romanticism, such as the mystique, the supernatural, and the pursuit of individual purpose, through engaging gameplay. Storytelling within the game draws on influential works, including players to interactively experience the emotional and intellectual struggles that define romantic thought. This approach to learning empowers players not only to identify and analyze literary themes, but also to feel their resonance within an immersive digital context, making romantic literature feel vibrant and relevant in modern age. In conclusion, Baldur's Gate 3 and other narrative-driven video games exemplify the transformative potential of digital media in education, demonstrating how interactive technology can enhance and broaden traditional learning methods. By bridging the gap between academic conventions and modern immersive media, these games offer students the opportunity to engage with complex literary themes in an entirely new way. Through the lens of choice and consequences, players can experience firsthand the consequences of their decisions, whether they be moral, psychological, philosophical, or emotional. This dynamic approach to learning encourages active participation, where students are not merely passive recipients of information, but active agents in the process of exploration and understanding. By engaging with the game's challenges, students can develop critical thinking, ethical reasoning, and empathy, which are invaluable skills both in the context of literature studies and in real-life situations. The ability to make choices that affect the narrative directly fosters a deeper understanding of personal responsibility, the complexity of human behavior, and the consequences of one's actions. Furthermore, the cooperative learning mechanics embedded in multiplayer environments help promote collaboration and teamwork, offering students the chance to engage in thoughtful discussions, share their unique insights, and challenge one another's interpretations. These interactions deepen students' understanding of the literary works by being explored, enabling them to approach these texts from multiple perspectives and engage with them on a deeper, meaningful level. Games like Baldur's Gate 3 also redefine the role of digital media in education by offering a truly multi-dimensional platform where literary texts and themes are not just passively read but actively lived. The immersive worlds these games create allow students to experience complex narratives and explore the moral, emotional, and philosophical questions that have been central to great literature, particularly those in the context of romanticism. These games offer students a rich, experimental framework within which they can engage with themes such as the sublime, the supernatural, and the quest for individual purpose. By stepping into the shoes of characters who face intense personal struggles, players can better grasp the human experience in ways that are both intellectually stimulating and emotionally resonant. This approach to learning makes the abstract and often challenging concepts found in literary texts more accessible, helping students connect with the material in a way that traditional methods may not. Instead of simply analyzing literary themes from a distance, players actively participate in the narrative, giving them a deeper emotional investment in the outcome and a more profound appreciation of the text's relevance. As a result, students develop not only a greater understanding of the specific works being studied, but also a lasting engagement with the larger ethical, emotional, and intellectual challenges that these works explore. This engagement extends far beyond the classroom, fostering a lifelong appreciation for literature and its capacity to illuminate the complexities of the human condition. As educational tools, narrative-driven video games like Baldur's Gate 3 have the potential to transform the way students engage with literature, providing a powerful interactive method for exploring the complexities of romanticism and other literary traditions. These games not only bring the text to life in an immersive context, but also make abstract concepts tangible, forging a deeper connection to the human experience that these works so passionately seek to understand. Ultimately, Baldur's Gate 3 and similar games represent a groundbreaking approach to learning, revolutionizing how we explore literature and offering a compelling alternative to traditional methods of teaching.